Good evening, everybody. For this week's poem, it's with Groundhog Day in mind, as that's when this this video will be posted to will be posted. But unlike Bill Murray in the movie Groundhog Day, this day is one that I wouldn't really mind reliving again if given the opportunity. We go back we go back to last October for one more glimpse of one more for a glimpse of summer on the other side of the Atlantic, and it goes something like this: on Groundhog Day, a day I'd want to relive, October 5th, 2023, as the hazy sun rose over Santorini. Excitement is in the air. The coup de grace after 13 days. The catamaran pulls away from shore. A dozen of us set out to sea, gliding amongst the waves by breeze. Here there is a sense of peace, laying out in the sun, barefoot, Hellas lager can in hand, and not a single care in the world. The swimming stops at the caldera. I felt emboldened to get wet. Instead of being a passenger, my self-consciousness went fast. Off with the shirt to be as I am. I didn't care about showing my gut. Into the water I went. The vibe was so high as the day turned to night in Ia. Crowded streets led to one last sunset. One last dinner with all 28 of us. I didn't see the mood change coming. I delayed the inevitable feelings, yet the sadness of the trip ending came. As everyone said goodbye, I faded into the night. If I could change anything about this day, I would have reminded myself it's okay to be happy and sad at the same time. The end of the trip isn't the end of the world. So yeah, it's like when I thought of myself to a day that I wanted to relive from recent memory, like this day was the one that this this day was the one that leapt to mind, as I already brought up October 1st when we were back in Crete, and naturally, like the all these months later, the imagery of me being on the catamaran in absolute bliss, soaking up the sunshine with about half of our group aboard the boat too. All lunch, all the food, all the beer and wine we could we could drink, and swim, and getting up and going out the back deck to swim in the caldera. Like, what, you couldn't ask for any more of this, any better circumstances if you tried. The scenery justified this trip being the only optional excursion offered during the tour, and without even blinking an eye, I added it to the trip in the initial confirmation. And based on the day, my hunch was more than validated. If there was one thing about this day that I wish I could change, it would be how it ended. because I had a major baby Prince moment at the end of the night, and I didn't see it coming because I having dinner conversations, and there were a few bottles of Mythos beer on the table, so I was not late. Like dealing with any of the emotions was the last thing on my mind at the time. But as the dinner wrapped up, it began to hit me. It's like, oh no, this trip is done. Like I'm flying back to the mainland in the morning, and then flying across the Atlantic later the same day back to New York. I was in my bliss during the island portion of the 14 days between Crete and Santorini, that it helped me forget, at least for the time that I was there, all the difficult parts of 2023, from family health issues to the fact that only in the middle of the vacation did I eventually find out that that the temp assignment that I was working at was eventually be turned into a full-time gig. So it was just like a lot of things in flux, and even the Greece trip itself. When I booked it the previous October, I was kind of reluctant to do it, knowing that I had no job at the time last November, not expect not expecting things to work out, but at the same time hoping for the very best that everything would sort itself out in time for me to take the trip. And by and large, everything did. I would start the new job at the end of October. I had a hell of an experience over the 14 days. I was in a state of bliss that it would come one more time later that month when I went to visit my friend Wendy at her home at the Phineas Wright House, with me at the end of that first day with the whole bunch of dahlias in my hand, smiling in the sunshine. Later that Friday the 27th. But I know I've like come back to Greece quite a bit over the last few months. Like it pops up here and there. But when you have a trip that goes that well, naturally you're gonna like have fond memories of it. Even the parts of the trip that you kind of wish you could have the opportunity to relive again, and maybe this time have a more positive reaction to the end of the trip, instead of bailing, like getting off the bus without saying a word to anyone and heading straight back to your room. It happens. I have that moment every time I travel. Like it's unavoidable. Yet one would think that I would have the emotional skills to handle the sad moments a little bit better than I do. After all, just because one trip ends, there's another one to plan. It's not the end of the world for travel to end. Well, everyone, that's it for this week's video. I hope all of you have a wonderful Friday and an amazing weekend. And I'll talk to you guys again next week. Good night, everybody.